Tonight, as you close your eyes, the modern world quietly slips away. The glow of city lights fades into silence. Far beyond the shores of the Aegean Sea, beneath a sky filled with ancient stars, a child is about to take his very first breath. He does not know that kingdoms will one day rise in his name. He does not know that gods will bow before his throne. Tonight, he is only a newborn, hidden from a king who fears a single prophecy. So, take one slow breath, settle into the quiet, and together, let us journey to the night when the story of Zeus first began, long before the first kingdom rose upon the earth, before marble temples crowned the hills of Greece, before great cities filled the valleys with life. The world was astonishingly quiet. There were no roads winding through forests, no fishing boats drifting across calm blue waters, no shepherds leading their flocks beneath the morning sun. No voices echoed across the mountains. No fires warmed quiet homes. No footsteps disturbed the sleeping earth. Even the wind had not yet learned where to wander. If you could somehow stand at the beginning of all things, you would not hear the crashing of waves, or the singing of birds, or the whisper of leaves moving gently through ancient trees, because none of them existed. There were no forests, no rivers, no oceans, no sky stretching endlessly overhead. Only silence. A silence so complete that even time itself seemed to rest. The ancient Greeks believed that everything began here, not with thunder, not with fire, not with a battle between mighty gods, but with something far quieter. They called it chaos. Today, that word often brings to mind confusion and disorder. But to the ancient Greeks, chaos was something entirely different. It was an endless emptiness, a vast and silent space without shape, without light, without earth, without sky. There was no sunrise to welcome a new day, no moon to watch over the night, no stars to decorate the heavens. Nothing moved, nothing changed. Everything simply waited. How long that silence lasted, no poet could ever truly answer. Perhaps only a moment, perhaps longer than eternity itself. Then, without warning, the emptiness began to change. Not suddenly, not violently. The change arrived as gently as the first breath of someone still asleep. From the endless silence, a quiet presence slowly emerged. The ancient storytellers would later give her a name: Gaia, the living earth. Not simply the ground beneath our feet, but the living foundation from which the entire world would one day grow. She stood alone, silent, patient, endless. Within her rested every mountain that had yet to rise, every river that had yet to flow, every forest that had yet to sway beneath the wind, every flower that had yet to bloom beneath the spring sun. The whole world already existed within her, like a beautiful dream, still waiting to awaken. For a time, Gaia remained alone. Above her stretched only an endless darkness. There were no clouds, no sunlight, no stars, only an empty sky that had not yet been born. Then Gaia looked upward into that infinite darkness, and from her own being, another ancient power slowly came into existence. The Greeks remembered him as Uranus, the endless heavens, the great sky. Slowly, almost gracefully, the heavens rose above the newborn earth, higher and higher, until they stretched beyond every horizon. For the very first time, the earth was no longer alone. Uranus embraced Gaia like an endless blue canopy, sheltering the young world beneath him. Above, the heavens. Below, the living earth. Between them, the universe had finally found its first quiet balance. Morning light now had somewhere to appear. Night had somewhere to return. The world had taken its very first peaceful breath. And beneath that endless sky, something extraordinary was already beginning. For earth and sky would not remain alone for long. Together, they would become the parents of beings whose names would echo through myth for thousands of years. The age of the Titans was about to begin. For a brief moment, the universe knew only peace. Earth and sky stood together, watching over a young world filled with endless possibility. No one could yet imagine that this growing family would one day turn against itself, or that love would slowly give way to fear. The first chapter of creation had only just begun, and somewhere beyond the quiet horizon, destiny was already waiting. The world was no longer empty. With Gaia beneath and Uranus above, life continued to unfold in quiet, extraordinary ways. One after another, their children entered the world. The first were the Titans, 12 mighty beings born from the union of earth and sky. They were neither mortal nor the Olympian gods we know today. They belonged to an older age, a time when creation itself was still finding its shape. Each Titan carried a different gift. Oceanus would one day become the endless river surrounding the world. Hyperion would father the great lights of the heavens. Theia would become the mother of the sun, the moon, and the dawn. Mnemosyne would preserve memory. Themis would represent divine order and justice. And among them, the youngest son quietly watched the world with thoughtful eyes. His name was Cronus. Unlike many of his brothers, Cronus rarely drew attention to himself. He observed, he listened, he remembered. The ancient poets never described him as the strongest Titan, but they often hinted that he possessed something far more dangerous: patience. Yet the family of Gaia and Uranus continued to grow. Soon, 3 unusual children were born. Each possessed a single great eye set in the center of the forehead. They were the Cyclopes. To later generations, their appearance inspired fear. But in the beginning, they were not feared because of cruelty. They were admired for their remarkable gifts. Even as children, they seemed naturally drawn toward fire, stone, and metal. Long before they forged legendary weapons, they simply explored the young world with endless curiosity. Then came 3 more sons, larger than mountains, stronger than storms, each with 100 powerful hands and 50 watchful heads. The Greeks called them the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed ones. To human imagination, they seemed almost impossible to picture. Yet they too were simply children, born into a world that had not yet learned to fear what was different. For a short while, the family of earth and sky lived together beneath the endless heavens. The newborn world felt balanced, peaceful, complete. But peace can sometimes hide the first signs of trouble. Uranus began looking upon his children differently. At first, his concern was small. Then it quietly grew. Every new child seemed more powerful than the last. The Titans possessed incredible strength. The Cyclopes possessed extraordinary skill. The 100-handed ones possessed a force unlike anything creation had ever seen. The king of the sky could no longer see only his children. He saw possible rivals. The ancient myths never tell us that the children challenged him. They never speak of rebellion or betrayal. His fear came long before either of those things. It was born entirely within his own heart. Fear has always possessed a strange power. It whispers that tomorrow may steal what today has given. And if left unchecked, it can transform love into suspicion. Uranus had become ruler of the heavens. Yet despite all his power, he could not escape a fear shared by many rulers throughout history: the fear of being replaced. Without realizing it, the first shadow had fallen across the house of heaven. A decision, driven by fear rather than wisdom, was slowly beginning to take shape. And that single decision would change the destiny of gods, titans, and eventually a newborn child named Zeus. Fear rarely arrives all at once. More often, it grows quietly, like a shadow, stretching a little farther with every passing day. That was what happened to Uranus. He looked upon his children, not as a father, but as a king. And every time he saw the Titans, the Cyclopes, or the 100-handed ones, the same thought returned. One day, they may become stronger than I am. No prophecy had yet been spoken. No child had challenged his authority. Nothing had happened. except the fear inside his own heart. Yet fear does not always wait for evidence. Sometimes it creates its own. And so, the ruler of the heavens made a choice, one that no loving father should ever have made. One by one, his children were taken, not cast into the sea, not sent beyond the horizon, but forced deep beneath the earth, into the darkest depths of Gaia herself. The ancient Greeks called this place Tartarus, not yet the prison it would later become, but already a place of unimaginable darkness. No sunlight reached it, no gentle wind ever touched its walls. Only silence, cold, heavy, endless. There, the Cyclopes were imprisoned. There, the 100-handed ones were locked away. Some ancient traditions even suggest that many of the Titans lived beneath constant fear of suffering the same fate. The world above remained peaceful. The rivers still flowed. The stars still crossed the heavens. Morning still followed night. To anyone looking from afar, nothing had changed. But beneath the earth, Gaia could feel everything. She was the earth itself. Every prison cut into her body. Every cry echoed through her. Every chain became her own burden. The pain was not only physical, it was the pain of a mother, unable to protect her children. Day after day, she endured it in silence. But silence can only carry sorrow for so long. Eventually, her grief became resolve. Among all her children, there was one who listened more carefully than the others. Cronus, the youngest Titan, patient, observant, never rushing to speak. Gaia called him not with anger, but with quiet hope. She told him of the suffering beneath the earth, of the brothers who had never known freedom, of a father who had allowed fear to become cruelty. Cronus listened. He did not answer immediately. The wind moved softly across the newborn world. The stars watched in silence. And somewhere deep within the young Titan, a decision began to take shape. For the first time, someone was willing to stand against the king of the sky. Not for glory, not for power, but because a mother's sorrow could no longer be ignored. The quiet age of creation was coming to an end, and the first rebellion in the history of the gods was about to begin. The night was unusually still. Even the wind seemed reluctant to disturb the silence. Above the young world, the endless heavens stretched from horizon to horizon. Uranus, confident that no one would ever challenge his rule, descended once more to embrace Gaia. But this night was unlike every night before it. Hidden deep within the shadows, Cronus waited, not with excitement, not with hatred, but with a heavy heart. The choice before him was one no child should ever face: to raise a hand against his own father. Yet every moment he hesitated, he remembered the cries of those imprisoned beneath the earth, the Cyclopes who had known only darkness, the 100-handed ones whose strength had become their punishment, and Gaia, whose sorrow had quietly filled the world itself. Before the night began, she had placed something into her youngest son's hands, a great curved blade, forged not by fire, but shaped from the hardest stone the earth could give. The ancient poets would later call it an adamantine sickle. Its edge caught the pale moonlight. Cronus held it tightly, not because he desired power, but because he believed something had to change. The heavens remained silent. For a single heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, with one swift motion, the silence was broken. The ancient myths describe what followed in many different ways. Some tell it with violence, others with only a few quiet lines. But every version agrees this was the moment when the rule of Uranus ended. The king of the sky fell. His endless reign came to an end beneath the same heavens he had once believed would belong to him forever. The world itself seemed to pause, not in celebration, but in astonishment. For the very first time, one generation had overthrown another. The balance of creation had changed forever. Slowly, the heavens withdrew. Never again would Uranus rule the earth as he once had. His place would now belong to Cronus. The youngest Titan had become the new ruler of the universe. Gaia looked upon her son. The burden she had carried for so long finally began to lift. Yet peace did not arrive, because fear has a curious way of passing from one generation to the next. Cronus had defeated his father because Uranus feared losing power. But somewhere, hidden deep within the heart of the new king, the smallest seed of that same fear had already begun to grow. He could not yet see it. No one could. But destiny already could. And before many years had passed, that quiet seed would grow into the very thing Cronus once believed he had destroyed. For a time, the world seemed peaceful once again. The heavens no longer belonged to Uranus. The Titans now ruled the universe. Across the young earth, the rivers continued their endless journey. The mountains stood quietly beneath the sky. The stars crossed the heavens each night, as though nothing had ever changed. To those watching from afar, Cronus appeared to be a wiser ruler than his father. He did not imprison his brothers. He did not rule through cruelty. He brought order to a world still finding its shape. Beside him stood his sister, and now his queen, Rhea, gentle, patient, kind. Where Cronus often remained silent, Rhea offered comfort. Where he carried heavy thoughts, she brought calm. Together, they ruled what later generations would remember as the Golden Age. The ancient Greeks imagined it as a time unlike any other. The earth offered food freely. The seasons were gentle. People knew neither hunger nor war. Life moved peacefully, as though the world itself had finally found harmony. Yet even during humanity's happiest age, a quiet shadow still lingered. Cronus rarely spoke of his father, but memory has a strange way of following us. Sometimes it arrives in dreams, sometimes in silence, and sometimes in a single sentence that changes everything. One day, an ancient prophecy reached the ears of the Titan king. No one knows who first spoke it. Some stories say it came from Gaia herself. Others believe it was whispered by the ancient powers, older even than the Titans. Its words were simple, terribly simple. One day, one of your own children will overthrow you, just as you overthrew your father. Cronus said nothing. Outwardly, he remained calm, but inside, the old fear returned. The very fear that had once consumed Uranus. He tried to ignore it. Days passed, then weeks. The prophecy never left him. Every quiet moment brought it back. Every sunrise, every silent evening, the same thought returned. One of my children will take everything. Soon, Rhea announced that she was expecting their first child. Joy filled her heart, but not his. Where Rhea saw new life, Cronus saw only the prophecy. He began watching the future instead of the present. The child had not even been born, yet already he feared it. History was beginning to repeat itself. Fear had passed from father to son, not through blood alone, but through choice. When the day finally arrived, Rhea gave birth to a beautiful daughter. She named her Hestia. She was peaceful, quiet, perfect. Rhea placed the tiny child into the arms of her father. For a brief moment, Cronus looked into the face of his newborn daughter. Then, without anger, without hesitation, he did something that would horrify generations for thousands of years. He opened his mouth and swallowed her whole. The room fell silent. Rhea could not believe what she had just witnessed. The child was gone. Not taken away, not hidden, gone. Cronus lowered his head as though nothing extraordinary had happened. In his mind, he had protected his throne, but in doing so, he had taken the first step toward becoming exactly like the father he once despised. And this was only the beginning. The years passed quietly. But inside the royal halls of the Titans, peace had become an illusion. After Hestia, another child was born, a daughter. Rhea named her Demeter. She held the tiny child close for only a few precious moments. Then Cronus came. His face showed neither anger nor sorrow, only determination. Without a single word, he He took the newborn and swallowed her. The prophecy had not been defeated, only delayed. Time moved on. Again, Rhea carried new life. Again, hope quietly returned. And again, it was taken from her. Hera met the same fate, then Hades, then Poseidon. One by one, her children disappeared, never allowed to take their first steps, never allowed to see the sunrise, never allowed to know their mother's embrace. To the outside world, Cronus remained the mighty ruler of the Golden Age. The harvests were plentiful, the rivers flowed peacefully, the heavens remained calm. Few could imagine that the king of the Titans lived every day in fear of an infant. But Rhea could no longer bear the silence. A mother's grief cannot remain hidden forever. Each child she carried, she loved. Each child she lost left an emptiness no throne could ever fill. At night, when the palace had fallen quiet, she often walked alone beneath the stars. Looking upward, she wondered if the heavens themselves could hear her sorrow. Then she remembered her own mother, Gaia, the living earth. If anyone understood the pain of losing children, it was Gaia. Quietly, Rhea sought her out, far from the palace, far from the watchful eyes of Cronus. Mother and daughter met once again. The old earth listened patiently. She already knew what had happened. The suffering of Rhea echoed through every mountain, every valley, every stone. Gaia spoke softly, but her words carried the weight of the entire world. The prophecy cannot be escaped. The child who is destined will still be born, for destiny always finds its way. Then a plan began to take shape. Not a plan built upon armies, nor violence, but upon something far simpler, a mother's courage. When Rhea became pregnant once more, she told no one. She smiled when others were watching. She remained calm, but inside, she protected a secret greater than any the world had ever known. The months passed. Cronus noticed nothing unusual. His confidence returned. He believed he had already defeated fate. At last, the night arrived. Far from the royal palace, far from the eyes of the Titan king, Rhea traveled in secret. Her journey led her across the sea to the rugged island of Crete. There, hidden among quiet mountains, inside a lonely cave, the child was born, a healthy son. The air was still. The stars shone brightly above the island. Rhea held the newborn close, listening to the steady rhythm of his tiny breathing. She whispered his name so softly that only the cave itself could hear. Zeus. She knew she could not keep him with her. If Cronus discovered the truth, the prophecy would end before it had truly begun. Tears filled her eyes, but her resolve never faltered. Tonight, the fate of the universe rested in the hands of a mother. The cave remained perfectly still. Outside, the moonlight rested quietly upon the rugged mountains of Crete. Only the gentle sound of the evening wind moved through the ancient olive trees. Inside, Rhea held her newborn son close, his tiny fingers wrapped softly around hers, his breathing slow and peaceful. For a few precious moments, the world felt wonderfully ordinary. He was not a prophecy. He was not the future king of the gods. He was simply a mother's child. But dawn would soon arrive, and with it, the hardest choice Rhea would ever have to make. She could not keep him. If Cronus discovered the truth, the child would disappear, just as his brothers and sisters had. Slowly, Gaia stepped forward. The ancient earth had already prepared everything. Hidden within the mountains lived gentle nymphs who had sworn to protect the child. Among them was a faithful guardian who would care for him, far from the eyes of the Titan king. Then, Gaia lifted a large stone from the earth. It was smooth, heavy, and roughly the same size as a newborn infant. Rhea wrapped it carefully inside soft white cloth. From a distance, it looked exactly like a sleeping baby. Every fold, every corner, placed with loving care. When the bundle was finished, Rhea closed her eyes. She whispered a quiet blessing over her real son. Then, with trembling hands, she placed him into the arms of those who would hide him. The tiny child never cried, almost as though the mountain itself already understood the importance of silence. Before sunrise, Rhea returned to the palace of Cronus. The bundle rested quietly in her arms. Cronus looked only briefly. His fear had made him impatient. He no longer searched for the face of his children. He saw only the prophecy. Without hesitation, he reached forward, lifted the bundle, and swallowed it whole. The stone disappeared, just as the others had. Satisfied, Cronus believed he had defeated destiny once again. He never realized that fate had quietly slipped through his fingers. Far away, on the island of Crete, the real child slept peacefully. The nymphs prepared a quiet home deep within the cave. Nearby lived a gentle white goat named Amalthea. According to one of the oldest Greek traditions, her rich milk would nourish the growing child. Each day, the little boy grew stronger. The mountains became his first home, the stars his first companions, the whispering wind his first lullaby. But there remained one great danger: babies cry. And even across great distances, the ancient storytellers feared that Cronus might somehow hear the voice of the child, destined to overthrow him. So the guardians found an unusual solution. A band of loyal young warriors, known as the Curetes, gathered outside the cave. Whenever Zeus cried, they struck their bronze shields with heavy spears. The sharp metallic rhythm echoed across the mountains, loud enough to drown every sound coming from within the cave. To anyone listening from afar, only the clash of bronze filled the air. The child remained hidden, the secret remained safe. And with every passing season, Zeus grew a little taller, a little wiser, a little stronger. Far above, Cronus continued ruling the world, completely unaware that the future he feared was no longer a prophecy. It was growing, one quiet day at a time. The years passed quietly. The child hidden among the mountains was no longer a child. Zeus had grown into a young man, strong, calm, patient. The winds of Crete had become his companions, the rivers his teachers, and every story whispered by the nymphs reminded him of the family he had never known. He learned of his mother, of his imprisoned brothers and sisters, and of the father who had swallowed his own children out of fear. Zeus did not answer with anger, not immediately. He waited, just as the mountains wait patiently through every season. In time, wisdom found him. The ancient myths tell us that Zeus sought the help of Metis, the Titaness of wisdom and careful counsel. Together, they prepared a simple drink. Nothing about it appeared unusual, yet hidden within it was the power to awaken the past. One day, Zeus returned to the court of Cronus. The mighty Titan king did not recognize the young stranger standing before him. The cup was offered. Cronus accepted it without suspicion. Moments later, something began to change. A deep pain rose within him. Then, one by one, the impossible happened. Hestia returned, then Demeter, then Hera, Hades, Poseidon, alive, unchanged, as though no time had passed at all. For the first time in countless years, Rhea embraced all of her children together. The prophecy had begun. But Cronus would not surrender his throne. The Titans gathered behind their king. Zeus stood beside his brothers and sisters. The heavens prepared for war. The struggle that followed would later be remembered as the Titanomachy. It lasted not for days nor months, but for 10 long years. Mountain shook against mountain. The seas rolled beneath storm-filled skies. Neither side could claim victory. Then Zeus remembered those still imprisoned deep within the earth. The Cyclopes, the 100-handed ones. He freed them, not because he needed soldiers, but because they had suffered long enough. In gratitude, the Cyclopes crafted 3 extraordinary gifts. For Poseidon, a mighty trident. For Hades, a helmet that granted invisibility. And for Zeus, a weapon that would forever become his symbol, the thunderbolt. With lightning now in his hands, the balance finally changed. The 100-handed ones hurled countless stones across the battlefield. The Titans could no longer hold their ground. At last, the war came to an end. Cronus and those who had fought beside him were cast into Tartarus, the great prison far beneath the earth. Not out of vengeance alone, but to prevent another age of fear. When the silence finally returned, the world seemed different. The rivers still flowed, the stars still crossed the heavens, but hope had quietly replaced fear. High above Greece, upon the sacred mountain known as Olympus, a new home was prepared. There, Zeus became king of the gods, not because he was the strongest, but because he had chosen to break the cycle that had passed from father to son. The ancient Greeks would spend centuries telling stories of Zeus, his victories, his mistakes, his children, his endless adventures. But perhaps the most important lesson began long before any of those tales. It began inside a quiet cave with a frightened mother who refused to surrender her child, and a newborn who survived because love proved stronger than fear. Tonight, as sleep gently finds you, remember, even the greatest stories often begin with the smallest heartbeat. Good night, and may peaceful dreams carry you gently through the timeless world of ancient Greece.